welcome to the Chrissy B Show. The years pass by so quickly and youth is soon a distant memory. Many people dread the later years in life instead of actually looking forward to them. And this could be down to a number of reasons, including the fear of health concerns and even memory loss. On the show tonight, we'll be having on guests that will advise us on how to make the most of the mature years and show that by being healthy, you can be much happier and even live longer. Joining me on the sofa tonight will be Dr. Catherine Loveday, a principal lecturer in cognitive neuroscience at the University of Westminster, as well as Mr. Clive de Cole, who is a health and longevity researcher and educator. I hope I said that right. And we also have Michelle Parek, MedQuantor UK consultant, who will be providing us with tips on how to stay looking young physically. We'll also be featuring an extra clip of a guest tonight, and more will be revealed later. So let's introduce our first guest, which is Dr. Catherine Loveday, and she specialises in memory loss. Hello,
Hi.
Catherine. Thanks
Hi.
for joining us.
So that doesn't mean that I have memory loss, then.
Right. Hope not. So we were just talking. Can you tell the viewers, first of all, what you do and what you specialise in?
Yeah, so I did some research quite a long time ago now, looking at how people's memory changes with age, and also some ways that it improves as well. So how it gets worse, but also how it gets better.
Can improve with age, really?
Some aspects of memory do get better. Okay. We know more, we become wiser, so we become more knowledgeable and more wise, and we have better vocabulary. So some aspects of what we know and learn about do grow. So memory does improve in some ways.
Okay. And at what age do people normally start to forget things, or... Because this happens to me often. Lately, I don't know if it's just because I'm tired or I've got a lot on, but I literally will walk into a room and I'm there, like, I literally just stand in the middle of the room and I have to, like, walk back to where I was so I can remember why I went to the room in the first place. And I do that. I've been doing that several times a day lately. I don't know what's going on.
Well, at least you're doing the right thing, because going back and finding out what it was you were thinking about is the right way to deal with that problem.
Well, I waste a lot of time to and fro in them.
It's because you're thinking about other things and you're distracted and you're busy and you're thinking about much more important things than why you went into that room to find something.
Thanks for that. That makes it sound better.
So what age does memory start? Well, it varies hugely. I mean, I'm sure we all know people in our, in their 80s and 90s who are absolutely fantastic and still really brilliant. And I guess we know people much younger than that who seem to have a lot more memory problems. So it varies massively. In fact, the bad news is that it starts going by about 20.
Gosh, really?
But then there are people in their 80s who have brains like 20-year-olds. So, we do start to lose brain cells from the age of about 20 onwards. But on the whole, we hang on to the good brain cells, the ones that we need, and our brain actually gets kind of generally more efficient.
Now, something I was telling you earlier as well, Catherine, was that I forget names. This is a thing. Names I forget very easily, and I had to look at all the guest names a few times tonight to remember, and sometimes I still get it wrong on the show. But things like films, if I watch a film just once, and it could have been years ago, if I see a tiny clip of it, I can remember the whole film, what happened, who the characters were, everything. And I find that really strange, and the fact that I can remember that and I can't remember names, I find it difficult to remember names.
Yeah, names are actually one of the hardest things for anybody to remember, and they tend to be the first thing that people forget. That's what I'm always trying to tell myself anyway, when I forget everybody's names. But films, I mean, you're kind of fully engaged in the film, and when you're watching the film, the whole story is there and there's a whole context, and you're using all the meaning from it and you're relating it to things in your life. But names, unless it's Mr. Baker and he makes bread, names don't really mean anything. I mean, they obviously mean something to us, but they don't have a meaning in themselves. And the brain is wired to remember things that have meaning. So the film has much more meaning for you than a name and a name and a face. And that's why these kind of memory experts try to get you to kind of link something. They say, if the person takes something about the surname and link it to the way the person looks, and then you're more likely to remember it.
Okay. We could let's open the phone lines as well, actually, and also if you want to contact us at any point during the show, you can also email me on chris at chrissybshow.tv. If you have a question about memory, or like maybe you're losing your memory, you don't know why, you can send an email. You can also call on 020 7686 6300. You can Facebook The Chrissy B Show or tweet Chrissy B Show as well. And we do have some questions from our viewers, and someone's asking, are there ways of improving our memory?
Yes, there's lots of ways of improving memory. There's sort of three-pronged attack. So the first one is to try and keep your brain as healthy as possible. Right. So a healthy body and a healthy brain will mean that you'll have a better memory. And I think you'll be hearing kind of a bit more about that later on.
We'll be speaking to us,
but one of the best things for keeping the brain healthy is just physical exercise. And I don't mean kind of mad Olympic running or anything like that. Even just walking the dog.
Into the spirit of the Olympics.
Regular dog walking, it has been shown, loads and loads of evidence now to show that that improves memory, and it actually makes new brain cells grow in the area of the brain.
Are you talking about just the walking, or the fact that the animal got any connection with?
Well, it's funny you should say that. Funny you should say that. I mean, it is actually the walking bit that has been shown to do it, but there is an effect of animals, and people are looking at that now because they kind of make people feel happier and more comfortable and less stressed.
We had a dog show on Friday. We had, how many? I think it was 4 dogs in the studio. It was a bit of mayhem, but it was like, it was really nice as well. They're very calming, very relaxing.
Exactly, and so that's the second one, is to try and keep yourself relaxed and happy, get lots of sleep. Which is not something
we're giggling because we don't get enough sleep. That's why we're like, I'm going to start getting more sleep.
So there's a report came out today actually that says that anyone that's getting less than 5 hours sleep, or interestingly more than 9, is probably their brain is at risk of premature aging. So
that's frightening, isn't it?
I know. So you need to try and make sure you get enough sleep.
But why oversleeping? Do you know
no,
why?
It's an interesting question. Lots of people ask that, and I don't know the answer to why more sleep does. I mean, sometimes it may be that people who sleep more have maybe other health problems or something. It may be a kind of byproduct of that.
Okay.
And then the most important one is to use memory strategies. So, for example, having, if you've got to post a letter, putting the letter by the front door so that you have to kind of walk past it. Obviously things like memory boards and writing things down and using calendars and diaries.
I write everything down.
Yeah. Well,
I put it on my iPad now. I won't go anywhere without my diary before, because I do, as soon as, like, for example, I've got a job to do or something, I write it down immediately because I know I'm going to forget later.
But a lot of that forgetting is going to be distraction. It's going to be because you were kind of half doing something else at the same time. And that
women multitasking and doing everything.
The other thing is that you can make something habit. So anything, like if you've got medication to take, or if you can just do the same thing always every day. And that, even when people are really, have quite serious dementia, they will still do things out of habit. So habits, you can form habits. Anything really important, make it a habit, then it will kind of stick with you.
You had an article as well that you were telling us about earlier.
That was the sleeping one, I think.
So, right, okay.
But it wasn't just the amount of sleep, it was also that if you keep changing your sleep habits, so if you're someone that suddenly goes, like people on nights or changing shifts, they have to be particularly careful because those changes in sleep habits can have a negative impact. And also things like sleep apnea and stuff should be sort of looked at, because there's evidence that can also affect the memory and
What's
brain.
the difference between like normal memory loss and then dementia as well? How can you actually tell?
Yeah, well, the only way to be absolutely sure, of course, is to visit a doctor and to have a really good full assessment. But I think there are certain warning signals, because people do worry. Everyone's memory does get a little bit worse, or some aspects, particularly word finding as well, trying to remember particular words. Those are all completely normal aspects of memory changing as we get older. But if people are sort of finding it, maybe they're getting lost, so someone particularly in familiar surroundings, not being able to find their way around, or not being able to follow a plot in a film. Mind you, I can't always follow a plot in a film.
Yeah, I kind of lose. Someone was asking my husband, what happened?
So, but sort of reading a book and sort of having, really not being able to follow the story. And I suppose if you're worried about a relative, just seeing whether they seem to kind of know things that they've watched on in the news, you know, obviously we tend to forget a lot, but an hour later you'd expect them to remember some of what they've been watching. So it's kind of looking out for that. But the recent memory, you know, what I had for breakfast is not that unusual. That's something that you'd expect a lot of people to maybe not necessarily be able to remember.
So do you think then that sometimes a lot of people worry about memory loss,
absolutely.
but in actual fact it's like you're saying, maybe they're just distracted or they have a lot on and like their brains all over the place.
And also what you've got to remember is that as you kind of get older, your brain slows down a bit, and just as you wouldn't sprint up the stairs anymore, the brain just takes a little bit longer to do things. So you need to give it that little bit of extra time and not overload it and try and do 2 or 3 things at once. Because if you're trying to, you know, you might be able to multitask when you're kind of 18 or 20, but you might not be able to do it quite as efficiently when you're 80 years old.
And maybe not to be hard on yourself as well.
Absolutely.
Not expecting to be the same as you were like 20 years ago, because sometimes it's so... and I think women especially, because we're kind of used to doing a lot of things like children and everything like that. So if we can't keep up like we used to, not to beat ourselves up, because that could actually add more stress, couldn't it?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And the stress and the anxiety is one of the biggest impacts on memory as well. Because if you're trying really hard and very anxious about stuff, then it's going to be harder to actually try and use your memory efficiently. So I think really as you get older, you just need to kind of relax and expect that maybe some things aren't going to work quite as well, but remember that you're wiser and you have better vocabulary and you're more knowledgeable, and that you just might take a little bit longer, but when you do come out with something, it'll be a real gem. So it's kind of, you know...
So that's a nice thing about getting older, because actually I'm not afraid of getting older. I'm looking forward to... Because I wouldn't want to go back, for example, and be 20 again, because I remember the mistakes I used to make when I was 20, and I've learned so much between then and now. So it's a nice stage. Like I look forward to the later years as well, because I know I'm going to be wiser. The same mistakes I was making like today, for example, I won't be making hopefully in 10 years' time.
As long as you remember. But there's another interesting piece of research that looked at attitudes to older people, and our attitudes to being older will influence how we age. So they did a study where it was a really long study over 40 years, and they asked people when they were quite young to talk about their attitudes to older people, and the ones that had the most negative attitudes were the most likely to have early strokes and early heart attacks. So our own kind of outlook...
Because there are people that actually say they don't like old people.
Yeah.
And I think that's so mean.
Well, they'll just get early strokes and heart attacks.
If you don't like, if you're saying you're looking there nice and young now and you're thinking, look, I don't like old people, I don't like being around... I love being around old people. I love learning from them and hearing the stories and everything. But if you don't like old people, you're, you know, heading for a fall, right?
It's an interesting thought though, isn't it? That if you're, when you're young, your outlook on older people will influence how you age yourself, and if you have a positive approach to getting older and embrace the changes and see them as positive changes, then it's actually going to mean that you age in a much healthier, happier way, I think.
And in the case of someone, it's not to really do the ageing part, but in the case of that someone has an accident, for example, and they have memory loss, then is it the same sort of thing?
No, it does tend to be different, because obviously as we age, things change gradually, so our brain is able to kind of compensate for the changes that happen. Whereas if someone suddenly has a brain injury, maybe a car accident or a viral infection or a tumour, then they'll suddenly lose a chunk of brain, and the brain can't react quite so quickly.
Do you actually help people with
regaining
their memory?
I work with people who have quite severe amnesia, and it's really difficult for them, because our memory is so much who we are. You know, when you think about your identity and who you are, it's because of everything you've done, and all the things that you've done in your life are what make you who you are.
Although it's good to forget something, but obviously it's quite traumatic.
And so, you know, there's one lady I work with who's fantastic. I mean, she's been a brilliant person to work with, but she has had 4 children, doesn't remember any of them being born, doesn't remember any of their early years, doesn't really remember anything much that's happened to her in the last 20, 30 years. And so her sense of who she is has been really kind of changed by the experience. So what we do is we do lots of work trying to help people to kind of reinstate that memory.
That's great.
You know, using photographs and getting them to talk to people and rebuild really
Yeah.
that part of their life, so they've got a story, because we all come with a story. We have our kind of backstory, and if you don't have that, it really affects the way you are.
Okay. Catherine, thank you so much for all that advice.
That's
really,
okay.
really handy. It has flown by, hasn't it, the time? We do have to go to a break now. But if you do want to ask any questions, or if you want more information, you can visit my website, chrissybshow.tv. We'll see you after this break. We'll be joined by Clive, who's going to be talking to us about natural things that you can eat that will really benefit your health. You can live longer and you can look much better as well. So that'll be after the break. Welcome back to the Chrissy B Show, and I'm now joined by Clive DeCarl, a health and longevity researcher and educator, and he's going to be showing us how you can actually live longer and be much healthier just by eating some very basic things, would you say, Clive?
Yes,
but
indeed.
some very, very effective ones.
Exactly.
So you've brought along quite a few things here that you're going to talk to us about and actually tell us the benefits of each thing for our health as well.
Well, that's right. It's first of all important to understand that living to a healthy old age is one thing, but you want to be fit and well to enjoy it.
Yeah.
So there are various elements I think one needs to look at. Firstly, as we were discussing earlier, the brain. Now, the brain's made primarily of water and cholesterol. So as many people are, if they're dehydrated, they're not getting full access to their brain. And if they're eating a low cholesterol diet, their brain is full of holes.
Oh. Doesn't sound very good.
Well, that's really what Alzheimer's is about. You know, 50 years ago, Alzheimer's was not described by doctors. You know, they've always written up medical cases, but Alzheimer's only occurred when low fat was suggested. That it was suggested that animal fats were bad and margarine and refined oils were good.
For you?
Well, put it this way, people used to believe that the Mediterranean diet, people cooked in olive oil, but that's not true. What the Mediterranean diet, they used to cook in duck fat, in chicken fat, in pork fat, and put on olive oil afterwards.
Oh, yes, well, I can relate to that because my family's Greek, so a lot of pork and things like that as well that they eat.
Yes. And the immune system, 80% of the immune system happens in the gut. But if we have antibiotics, for example, if we drink chlorinated water, the bacteria and the yeasts, which are in a natural symbiotic relationship in our gut, and it's them that actually do the digestion to a large degree, if you have doctors' drugs, they tend to wipe out this natural flora of the gut. Now, our ancestors would eat fermented vegetables, and fermented vegetables can recolonize the gut with the bacteria and friendly yeasts that we need so that our digestion can work properly. And in every culture around the world, they used to ferment vegetables. And it's incredibly easy to do. All you have to do is chop up vegetables and hold them under salted water, and they'll ferment. And people think that, let's say, to ferment a vegetable, let's say you wanted a pickled onion, people think that you need to pour vinegar on, but you don't. What you do is you take some onions and some salt water, hold the onions underneath the salt water, and in about a week, that water and the juice from the onion will have become vinegar as the fermentation process takes place. After a couple of weeks, the onions will taste delicious.
And is this cabbage in here?
Looks like red cabbage, or is this red cabbage, beetroot, celery, carrot, onion, garlic, chilli, all sorts of things. Yeah, well, it is a complete salad, and you just chop it up small, ram it into a glass jar like this with some salt, just salt to taste, and within about 5 days, it'll taste delicious and pickly and super fresh, and you can try some later.
Okay.
Another way to get fermented food is this. This is kefir, and these are grains. They're sort of translucent, soft grains of bacteria and yeast. And these would have been passed down from generation to generation for thousands of years. Kefir is actually a Turkish word which means feel good. And it's a fermented drink. This is about 2 days old. If you want to try it, it's very mild.
Cheers.
Cheers. And It is a probiotic drink.
It tastes like water, just a little bit of flavoured water, doesn't it? Yeah, it's nice.
Yes, essentially.
Pleasant, yeah. And what's that good for?
Again, fixing the immune system, making the
Right.
gut work properly.
Okay.
And health is all about a healthy immune system. Now, talking about the brain, it's worth understanding that we need to eat the healthy fats. So one of the best fats to eat is coconut oil. And
I read that somewhere, yeah.
well, it's
very
amazing.
good, yeah.
There is a YouTube video of Dr. Mary Newport and her husband. They say to her husband, who has Alzheimer's, draw a clock. He tries, but you wouldn't recognise it as a clock. 2 weeks, they give him 6 tablespoonfuls of coconut oil every day for 2 weeks. He comes back into the studio, they say draw a clock, and there it is, a clock, and you can recognise it with the numbers. Then 1 year later, he's back in the studio again, and the interview with him goes something like this. He says, oh, it was terrible when I had Alzheimer's. It was awful. But since I've been eating the saturated fats, putting the cholesterol back, I've got my brain back. Now, one of the other things that people need to understand is one of the simplest and cheapest medicines around, which is iodine. Iodine boosts brain function. If a woman is pregnant and they're low on iodine, they can give birth to a child with a low IQ. If they're very low on iodine, there's a medical term for it, it's called cretinism, and the child is born a cretin. Now, many people that I've given iodine to report back that the brain fog has lifted. Suddenly they've got access to full cognition. Suddenly they're thinking clearly. Not only that, but it solves very often the thyroid epidemic that is sweeping the world. There's an issue about the thyroid. The thyroid needs iodine to function, but if we're drinking chlorinated water or bathing in chlorinated water or taking in fluoride, those halogens, chlorine and fluoride, have a smaller molecular size than iodine, and they take the place in the hormonal system where the iodine should be, and the body makes fake hormones, and hence there's a thyroid epidemic. It's important to understand that we should, if we want to achieve a healthy old age, we should be filtering the chlorine out of our drinking water and filtering it from our bathing water.
Right. And with something like this, you would just take a couple of drops?
A couple of drops in water. This is Lugol's iodine. Would be considered by many health professionals as a good, healthy dose to keep the.
And what are these strange-looking things here?
Right. Now, if you wanted the finest cancer cure in the world, probably broccoli would be it. And these are sprouted broccoli seeds. This one's sprouted alfalfa. Now, I'm occasionally presented with people who are, say, 100 years old, and I would like to say to them, look, if you want to be healthy, you need a big salad bowl. And they say, well, I can't possibly do that. So let's say you sprout your salad, like the broccoli seeds here. If you juiced this, put it in a juicer and juiced it, you'd have a small glass like this of concentrated superfoods.
Right.
And if I had somebody I wanted to get well who was desperately ill, I would be sprouting seeds and juicing them, because a seed is the whole year's latent power from the plant that's gone into that seed. The moment you add water to it, the vitamin content, the content of the amino acids, the minerals are increased incredibly. So this may be 20 times, 100 times, possibly 500 times more nutrient dense than an adult broccoli plant.
Really? Gosh.
You're getting it at its maximum power. So you can have a salad full of different sprouted vegetables. You can sprout any vegetable you like and eat your salad in sprout form.
Super healthy. Wow.
Super healthy.
And you were showing me some chocolate earlier. Was it this one?
This one is chocolate. These are...
I thought they were almonds. That's how much I know.
So
Can you see?
these are cocoa
There you go.
beans. And the cocoa tree, I don't know, we might have a picture
Yeah, I
we
think
can
we do.
show of a cocoa tree. Chocolate is remarkably healthy.
There you go.
Yeah, so you can see the big chocolate
Contrary
pods.
to popular belief. See, girls, we can eat chocolate, but is that the milk chocolate or the plain one, as people say we should?
You want it as dark as possible.
Yeah.
But there is processed chocolate, and there's unprocessed chocolate. So this is the raw bean, or it's actually a nut, the seed of the chocolate pod. And if you eat raw chocolate, you only need an ounce, and it's one of the most complex and complete foods known to man. And you have more or less every mineral, every vitamin within chocolate. It really is a superfood, one of the top 10 superfoods in the world.
That's good news for us.
It really is, but you do need to eat the dark stuff or the raw stuff.
This one I know because I make soup with this. Goji berry soup. I saw it on TV once. It was a Chinese, I think for colds and flu. They said this was really good to put in with chicken soup.
Again, it's one of the top 10 superfoods on the planet, and there's a seed in each one of the, well, several seeds in each one of these, and the goji plant is frost-proof, so you can actually grow them in this climate, and they probably have the highest mineral and vitamin content of almost any berry. Brilliant for eyesight, because one of the things you want to do when you do get old is you want to keep all your faculties. You certainly want to keep your eyesight, so you want to be eating the berries for eyesight.
How much would you need to eat of that a day, say, to be effective?
Well, I would say it would be nice to eat maybe a tablespoonful a day.
That's
but
all,
if you get a good organic goji berry, it's so delicious, you might want to eat more than that. Other very, very important foods to understand, one of them is salt. And you might want to try just one teeny little bit of salt. There's a big difference between this salt and the sea salt you get in the supermarket. The sea salt we get in supermarkets is dry, and they achieve that dryness by removing the magnesium and several other of the minerals. And this has unbalanced the salt. So the type of salt the doctors used to warn us about was sodium chloride, table salt, highly refined and dangerous. But most of us believe that sea salt, that like you get in the supermarket, is safe and good for us. But in actual fact, it's a highly processed food. This is pure dried ocean, in this case dried Atlantic. And they dry it out in the salt flats with the sun and the wind doing the drying. And as you notice, it's wet, wet and a bit grey, and the wet is the magnesium. And we could dry this out in the oven, bring it out here again, within 15, 20 minutes it would be wet again because magnesium attracts water. Now, if you want to be well and live long, you need magnesium. Magnesium, I believe, is the most important mineral of the lot. And anybody out there who has twitches or muscle cramps should know that they're low on magnesium. Now, so anybody who has muscle cramps, and probably about 50% of your audience may get muscle cramps, should know that a heart attack is a muscle cramp of the heart. So if you're low on magnesium and getting muscle cramps, it's a warning that you may be the person who's going to get a stroke or a heart attack.
Now, Clive, we've got about a minute left, but I'm interested to know about because you had arthritis and you actually are free from that now, you're cured from that. Can you briefly tell our viewers how that happened? Well,
yes. I became so arthritic that I could no longer lift something as heavy as this. They put me into hospital for 3 weeks and they told me that I would probably be crippled for life and they could inject drugs into me for the rest of my life, but it would just get worse. I didn't like that idea at all. I checked myself out and I found a specialist who explained to me that actually I was low on minerals and vitamins, that I was deficient in enzymes. And I started correcting my diet and taking a lot of supplements. And within 1 year from being completely unable to walk, I recovered completely. All the knobbly bits went away. And at the same time, my father's best friend recovered from cancer by taking vitamin C in very, very high doses. And he lived on for 25 years and died of something else that wasn't cancer. So I had a double experience of realizing you can cure yourself of pretty much anything by natural means.
Wow, that's amazing. So Clive, are these quite easy to find? Is there anywhere that our viewers can visit for them to get these things if they want?
I sell all these things on my website, which is called ancientpurity.com. And we also sell devices, like this is a colloidal silver generator. And if you had to take an antibiotic, I wouldn't want to take a chemical antibiotic, I'd want a natural one. And silver is a natural antibiotic. It's been used for thousands and thousands of years, Alexander the Great knew all about it.
Okay then, well, we have run out of time, unfortunately. But if you do want more information about these things here, they do visit Clive's website as well. And I know there were a few things that we didn't get to talk about, but maybe next time you come along, we can talk about it as well. Thank you so much. So if you do want more information, you can visit chrissybshow.tv as well. And if you have any questions about anything as well, you can email me on chris@chrissybshow.tv. We'll be back after the break with someone that's going to be teaching us about how you can look younger for longer. Join us after this break. Welcome back to the Chrissy B Show, and now we're going to be joined by Michelle Parak, who's going to be telling us a bit about how you can actually stay looking younger by just taking some general care of yourself as well. Now, I know obviously one of the major things that people do worry about when they're getting older is the loss of their looks, and it's a big deal for many people. So hi Michelle, thanks for joining us.
No problem.
So a lot of people worry about their skin sagging and like things kind of going south or all sorts of things as they get older.
Yeah, that's
a major thing, isn't it? So.
Well, if you haven't followed Clive or Catherine's advice today, and you do get to a point where you've got a lot of wrinkles or unhappy, something that you're not happy about on your body or your face, there are solutions out there, whether it be surgery, non-surgical, creams. There are lots of options, and I think a lot of people find it very difficult to find what options would work for them, because there's hundreds, and probably a lot of people have tried, your anti-wrinkle creams, your cellulite busting creams, or some people have opted for surgery and it might not have worked for them. So, but there are lots of other options.
Do you think women or people in general, do you think they jump for surgery first before anything else? Because I know some people they want to make a difference, they want to look different, but they're afraid of, like, for example, going under the knife or.
Yeah. Unfortunately, there are a lot of people that kind of want the quick fix, and cosmetic surgery happens to be a well-known quick fix. There's nothing wrong with it. If it's something that you've researched carefully, you know who's doing it, you've gone to the right place, there's no options. But as technologies advance, there have been more non-surgical ways as such. So instead of you having to go under the knife, you can actually try and fix a problem that you may have, wrinkles around the skin, which unfortunately, whether we like it or not, it's going to happen. It's a natural aging process, which we're all
going to
be...
How can you minimise it though? Is there a way of minimising it?
Well, you've got your two different processes of aging. You've got your external and your internal. Your internal, unfortunately, that's just age. That's your genetics of when you will age. And then your external factors are things like smoking, the pollution, the environment, sun damage. All of these, I mean, we hear it all the time about minimising sun exposure or protecting yourself. Don't smoke because it causes wrinkles around the mouth.
It's like people, I remember myself as well, like on holidays when I was younger, when I was a teenager, I literally used to stare in the sun for hours on end, and I didn't care, and sometimes I didn't even use suntan lotion, which was really irresponsible when you do need to protect yourself when you go out in the sun. But it's like people think, especially when they're younger, oh, I'll worry about that later. Yeah. But then it does catch up on you in the end.
We start aging, and I know that we apparently lose our memory at 20 in our 20s. You start aging at 20, 25. And it's just that we don't see the visible effects of it till years later. But the aging process has actually started from around that age, which is quite a scary thought. The production of collagen slows down. Things like sun rays actually speed up the breaking down of the collagen, which just shows you if you something that you need so badly and later on you're trying to fix, it can become difficult and sometimes expensive, to try and fix it. So things like bad diets, pollution, sun exposure, it's always very you can't help things like gravity, for example. If it's gonna naturally every day we have something pulling us down, our face, body parts, and you can't stop that. There's nothing you can do about that. But if there are lots of preventive methods. But if it's gone too far, the work that we do is offering non-surgical ways. So you've got your your cosmetic, which is surgery. It's always incisions in the skin. You've got the Botox and the fillers, which still are injections within the skin. We offer non-surgical versions, so where we use ultrasound, different frequency therapy is fantastic.
Do you have? I think you brought along some pictures of like before and after.
Yeah,
when
we've got some for the body, I think. So, and also we've got machines that work especially for the face.
Okay.
And
so I think most people would prefer that rather than, because I would consider that rather than like surgery.
You know, a lot of people start with what's kind of the most cost effective, which is a cream or something that you can easily access. But as you find that something doesn't work for you, or the aging process starts to speed up, unfortunately, which we don't, the bane of all our lives, but then you find that the non-surgical versions could be your next step before you consider anything else, because once you start with surgery, it's first of all very expensive, can be very expensive, can also be very it's surgery, there's a downtime. Non-surgical in comparison would be your step before surgery, if you're considering something. Obviously, if you've had the non-surgical and it's not, I say not quite work for you, but not giving you the results you wanted, then surgery would be your step after. A lot of people go from creams to jump into surgery don't always realise there is the in-between, ultrasound for the face, which helps regenerate the skin cells, it's encouraging to produce more collagen, and actually trying to encourage the skin to do what it used to do, where it's slowed down. And I mean, collagen elastin, that's the thing that springs your face back into place. You need all of that. And
so it doesn't work to lay upside down, like I hear some people saying. You just kind of put your head upside down and you just like
get all the blood flowing. Well, there is. I mean,
wives' tale, maybe.
There's always a truth to something. I mean, getting the blood flowing anywhere, it's always going to be good for you. But it's not something that I would say, yep, do that and that's it. It's going to fix your problems. But it doesn't. It can all help as long as you're not, doing something drastic that you've not been fully aware of. Then it can all help.
Okay. Tell us about some of the problem areas, because we do have some pictures to show as well.
Okay. So on the face, obviously your frown lines, which can develop quite early on at times.
There we go. Oh yes.
And
I've got one across my forehead.
And I think as some people develop them quite young. And I think in some people it is an expression of their face. So you can reduce that again with non-surgical before you consider things like, a lot of people do Botox just to stop them, to paralyse those muscles. Those others, I mean, there's not really much you can do in terms of surgery there, but you would, because of it's just not possible in that area. But something like non-surgical, or your Botox or whatever it may be, but non-surgical almost irons out the wrinkles, gets the skin producing again to try and lighten the wrinkle as such, take the depth out of it. Okay. This area is a very big problem for a lot of people as they get older. It starts to droop around the face area. Again, same method. Using ultrasound for heat. Again, this has always got to be things that have to be performed by proper therapists. Our machines are Italian manufactured, for example, so it's there. You've got to really research what you're doing, where you're going for your treatments and things.
Let's take a look at some before and after pictures. I'm quite interested to see
These
that.
are quite good ones for the body,
okay.
which work slightly differently to the way the face works. Big tummy area, which is probably a big problem for a lot of men and women. The ultrasound machine we have for body shaping works at actually breaking down the fat cells and using your own lymphatic drainage system to pass it through the body. So when you treat the area, again, it's all done by a handpiece. It's a patent handpiece, which breaks down the as it radiates into. It's called the adipose tissue, which is the fatty tissue, which we all hate. It creates little micro bubbles which energize and start to break down everything around it, essentially breaking down the fatty acids, glycerol, and then we encourage lots of water drinking and getting your lymphatic drainage.
Everyone's been saying about water tonight, so I think that's one of the major things,
key,
isn't it?
Sleep and water, that's the theme of tonight. But it helps. all of it helps flush out what you would break down, or if you're, you know, the way you eat, or whichever way it may be, it's always important to have the water. And the machine has lymphatic drainage that's built in, which encourages the actual passing through the system, which is a major contributor. You can see some excellent results because of this. And sometimes some therapies don't use the body's natural processes to actually break down fats, and these are especially for stubborn areas. So the dreaded saddle bags, the love handles, which you could be very, very fit, but you end up with pockets of fat. Bingo wings as you age, unfortunately, the bingo wings.
I've had those for ages.
Yeah, well, the machine actually produces really, really good results for the bingo wings. It's quite a sensitive area to work on. It's usually quite a hard area to work on, and a lot of young people have it as well. But it's a great way. It's actually a very nice area to work on, like the tummy, like the back, thighs. When you have the inner thigh, the outer thighs, a lot of people find it very difficult. Stubborn areas, you know, exercise or diets can't fix. So I always say to people, you've got to go for these solutions only when you're genuinely worried about the tummy or the inner thighs or the love handles, which no matter exercise or combine it with a good diet. So if you've started to kickstart your detox or your diet system, the non-surgical ways are great complements for that. Really, really good complements for that.
Do you encourage people as well? Because obviously it would be nice to look after your health in the first place. Because I know maybe, for example, like you're saying, this person that smokes all their life, for example, and then they just want to kind of fix it. But obviously it's better not to live an unhealthy lifestyle in the first place.
Oh, I definitely agree. Yeah. We have some people that walk in who have told us that they've had quite a bad, eaten quite badly that week. And nothing out there is a miracle fix. You have to have good diet. You have to, exercise regularly with everything. These solutions are for natural aging processes, areas of the body which no matter how much exercise you're going to do, you're not going to be able to get rid of. Yeah. And also a very good kickstart to a diet because it works off the lymphatic drainage system. It's a great way to eliminate the waste, the toxins and everything else that you have in your body that you need to get rid of.
Okay, just before we chat to you a bit more, Michelle, I just wanted to show a video of this. I'll call her a young lady because she's young in spirit, but just take a look at this and see what you think.
What I could say about Jessie is that her uniqueness is, Jessie's 100 years old, and most people at 100, they don't have anything to live for. They feel that they want to give up. And so it's a lesson for all of us women, really, is that there's no need to be lazy. You can always find the time. And if you're going to look after your body and look after yourself on the outside and the inside, your home also has to be a reflection of that. And Jessie, you tick all the boxes. I can honestly say you do. And as for her health, I mean, she's in perfect health. You have no pains, do you, Jessie? Yeah. She has no pains, but I can say that, 20 years ago, Jessie had cancer and she overcame it. And when I speak to her friends and how she overcame it was because Jessie has a positive attitude about everything. It's very rare that she has a negative word from her mouth. She never says anything negative. If she bumps her feet, I will be the one trying to smooth her and she will say, I'm okay. I'm okay.
I don't live in the past.
She's my friend.
I live for every day.
How do you handle the problems of life? How do you handle it?
Well, I just have to carry on, don't I?
Right, Jessie teaches me how to do the walls. She can do the walls, can't you, darling?
Yes, yeah.
You used to be a dancer, didn't you?
Yes.
In your days.
My older days.
Yeah, she used to be very good, didn't you? Yeah. You used to go on the cruises, didn't you?
Yes.
Dance. Yes. Yes. You don't need any help from anyone?
Not really.
No.
No. My favourite dance The waltz.
The waltz.
The waltz.
The waltz
the waltz.
is her favourite dance. Yeah, yeah, she's very good.
And also the foxtrot.
The foxtrot, yeah. But you are amazing, Jessie.
I know.
She never whinges, she doesn't complain. You never complain, do you, Jessie?
No.
You've got a very positive spirit. And if we could all be like you, oh my days, our life would just be fantastic. So it was really nice. I'm so glad you guys came to meet her because you're a unique person, Jessie.
Yes.
You know?
Yes. I'm a superstar.
Yes.
Okay, that was Jessie, and actually since we filmed that, Jessie has actually passed on, but she did live to 100. She was very happy. And you know what, sometimes I think sometimes people fear getting older as well, because obviously they start to think about death and things like that, and that could be quite like traumatic, and that's why sometimes people fear getting older as well. I, for example, I used to have a phobia of death, and I used to have panic attacks and things like that as well, until I also brought the spiritual element into my life, and now that's not a fear that I have anymore, and I think that's also important. So I think when you're not afraid of something, you actually look forward and you just see it as another stage in your life, and you're not afraid anymore. But you know, I think today's guests have been really handy to have. Thank you so much, Michelle, for sharing the advice with everyone as well. Thank you to all my other guests. Wednesday's program is all about looking after your hair as well. So I know a lot of people have major issues with their hair loss or hair thinning like mine. So there'll be lots of guests on Wednesday to share their experiences with you as well. And also we're going to leave you with our YouTube funny video as well. Take a look at this and we'll see you on Wednesday. Bye-bye for now.
All right, you ready for this?
Yeah.
Okay, you gotta push that button really hard till that lights up, and then when it lights up, you have to push that one then. Okay, you ready? Go.
Don't do that, Daddy. Daddy, don't do it. Daddy, my ears.